Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about configuring security as well as the devices within Windows 10. So when you configure Windows 10, you need to look at how the file systems are configured, how some of the security settings are configured, what are some of the different options, and this is really all going to be dependent on how your system is. If you're talking you have a Windows 10 machine with a FAT NTF or a FAT file system versus NTFS file system, we're going to have to know the differences and we're going to have to compare the two. The security settings will all depend on certain features that you have set up. But part of that also means we have to look at how the hardware is set up and configured as well. Getting hardware up and running today's operating system is pretty simple. Windows 10, most things are auto plug and play. You plug it in, it auto detects it, auto downloads the drivers, and you're good to go. However, that's not always the case. Normally, when you plug something in, the software controlling the hardware, those are known as drivers, have to be installed, updated, verified, whatever. If there is an issue, we need to understand how to look at it, how to troubleshoot it, and how to configure them. More so recently, I've had a Windows 10 update actually make it so my wireless functionality just wasn't there, and it made things extremely difficult. So we're going to explore some of our devices in Device Manager. Because again, Device Manager is where we centralize everything. You won't see all hardware device managers, like printers for example, unless of course they're USB. In that case, you'll see the USB port that the printer is plugged into. Not every single piece of hardware is in Device Manager. That's an important concept. We have settings and we have hardware underneath settings for some of those features as well. So let's jump into Windows 10 and let's explore. Alright, so I'm logged into my Windows 10 machine and I just plugged in a USB wireless adapter. So because I'm using a virtual machine, I need to connect it to my virtual machine. Removable devices, and I just plugged in this RA-Link 802.11n wireless LAN adapter. I'm going to disconnect it from my physical machine and plug it into my virtual machine. You should hear the ding. You may not even see drivers that are downloading, but you'll also now notice we actually see it in our removable devices. If we go to Device Manager, we can see it underneath our NIC, our network adapters. It's a wireless NIC. We also have our physical NIC as well. So the reason I wanted to do this with a wireless card, and if you double click on it, you can drill down into the details of it. Each one of these properties are going to be different. So if I look at my gigabit adapter, it's going to be different. It's going to give you the location, it's going to give you the status, and it's going to give you different tabs. Common ones are general, advanced, drivers, and details. Everything else is going to be slightly different. So again, wireless, go to advanced. So you can actually look at some of the features of the wireless adapter. Normally, this is already preset for you, like country region. We use between channels 1 and 11 in the US. Some countries use 1 through 14. Some countries use just 10 through 13. So, I mean, you can set the different values based off of your country code. We can also see the driver that's installed. So this was a generic driver. We can do an update or a rollback or disable. That's all for a separate video for a little bit later. You can see the details of it, as well as the event, as well as power management. The reason I wanted to do this one is newer cards, anything like an 802.11ae or an AX, you actually have the additional properties where you can set some of the 5 gigahertz channels, as well as saying disable 802.11b or G. and disable some of the older wireless technology. And I've actually had to recently do that with a Microsoft Surface with Windows 10, so that's why I wanted to point this out. If we had a printer, printers aren't going to be here. This normally covers audio input and output, so headphones, speakers. If you have a battery type unit, laptops, the battery would be here. We have the overall system architecture. So here, this is going to be more of the main board, things like that. Disk drive, that's going to be all of our physical disks. Display adapter will be our display. DVD, CD-ROM will be our optical drives. Our HID, human interface devices, that's going to be input devices that are USB, that are not USB storage. I have a USB mouse and a USB keyboard. Those are my two HID devices. We have our storage adapters. ATA channels 1 and 0. That's legacy. But we have this guy right here. This is an IDE controller, again, legacy. Here we have the standard SATA controller. That's controlling our virtual disks. We have our keyboard. And again, you can drill down into them, drivers, details, events, resources, and so forth. You'll notice here we have an I/O range and an IRQ. Basically, with any hardware, they have to be able to send requests to the processor so that the processor knows how to process them. We have our mice, again, a HID compliant mouse. We have a monitor, network adapters we've already looked at. We have COM ports. We have not so much the printers, but the printer ports. We have our processor. I have 4 cores dedicated to this virtual machine, so that's why I have 4. Software. We have sound and video. That's going to be more the game controllers and video. Focusing on gaming is going to be located here. Storage controller is going to be whatever storage we have. Even though we have a SATA controller up here, that controls the SATA bus. I have an NVMe controller because I have a NVMe storage device. We have system devices also. That's going to be all of the core components like CPU to PCI bridge. This is going to be like the chipsets, USB ports, things of that nature. And then lastly is our USB hub. So this little area has a ton of details that we have to be familiar with. Alright, so I brought up the device manager of my main PC. I have 3 audio outputs. It's really weird because these are actually my monitors, but they do have built-in speakers, and they're connected via DisplayPort. We have a USB soundbar. I have a camera. I have a Yeti microphone. I also have a SPDIF output on my sound card, which is not in use. Now, again, you'll notice that here, my microphone could be my Logitech camera or my Yeti. I have a line out, that's my sound bar. And that's going to be slightly different than my speakers. My speakers are the USB sound bar. This is going to be my speaker output on my sound card. This is always really funny. This is my microphone. But my microphone has the ability to internally process audio, so it can act as a speaker if I'm doing playback back to the system without it actually having to display on my speakers. Biometrics, I have the HelloFace software. I do not have the HelloFace software configured, but it's there. You're going to notice that this guy is pretty much identical to my virtual machine. Not my motherboard, but it's more the architecture. I have an NVMe Samsung SSD 950. I have a NVMe Toshiba 1TB drive, and I have a Western Digital USB 6TB external hard drive. So those are my 3 physical disks. My display adapter, I have a GTX 980 Ti. A little dated, but for what I do, more than sufficient. My HID devices, headsets, controllers, virtual keyboard and mouse. So there are specific hardware behind each of these. I have 2 SATA controllers. Even though I don't have SATA enabled, I have 2 NVMe drives. The SATA controller is still present. Imaging device, I have a Brother scanner, and I have a Logitech Brio camera. My keyboard, it's showing as a HID keyboard. I keep installing the drivers, but Windows keeps overwriting those drivers and putting a generic keyboard driver in. I have a HID compliant mouse. Same thing, I keep installing the Logitech drivers, but they decide not to stay. Windows overwrites them. I have my 3 monitors. Even though they show generic PNP monitors, they actually were installed as 289K DP display monitors. Network adapter, I have my first physical adapter, I have my second physical adapter, and then I have a VPN adapter, a VirtualBox virtual adapter. I have 3 virtual NICs because I have VMware installed, and then I have WAN mini ports, exit points for different types of VPNs. Portable devices, the MyBook, that's the Western Digital. Ports, I have just the Virtual COM Port 1. Print queue, these are going to be the printer ports, not so much the printers themselves, but the printer ports. I have a 4-core hyper-threading, an i7 6700K processor. Software. This is going to be other devices that I have connect. I have an Xbox that I've linked, so my Xbox shows here. Sound and gaming, again, sound bar, camera. This is going to be a audio display for my video card. Here's my virtual audio device, my sound card, my microphone, the NVMe Express controller card. I have a few fans that connect, thermal zones, the appropriate chipset drivers as it works with my motherboard, host bridge to DRAM register. There's some Hyper-V for virtualization, for Windows Hyper-V, PCI to PCI bridges. So again, this is normally the north and south bridge components. Our USB, I have a USB 3 and USB 3.1. So these are the host controllers. This is what things get plugged into. And then I have like a VMware USB device that allows me to connect USB 3 to my VMware hosts. And I do have a Western Digital SES device. That's my Western Digital external drive. So this is where you would be doing a lot of the device management for the drivers, for updating the drivers, things like that. That's all going to be located in Device Manager. And if you're looking to modify specific settings that's dealing specifically with the hardware, that's going to be done here. I'm going to drill down into one of my physical adapters. And you'll notice each adapter will have different settings. Like we have the ability to do send-off loads, do modify IRQ requests, shut down or turn on wake on LAN. We can hard code our duplex speed if necessary, or hard code our VLANs. So we have the ability to manage a lot of hardware-specific details from Device Manager. We typically also have our devices, our events, our resources. Resources are going to be the physical hardware resources that we utilize. And again, we have our power management. Alright, so that covers our entry-level discussion on Device Manager. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.